congratulations on the awards last night.
Thank you very much.
Well-deserved award for James Cromwell.
Yeah, that was, I mean, apparently that's his first award he's won, so it was very sweet. We were meeting earlier that day, and he was completely not expecting to win, so it was beautiful that he
Like
won.
he was a seasoned non-winner.
He was very used to not winning, exactly.
Aw.
So I think he was really touched that he won.
Yeah. Oh, good. Tell me how you came about the story of the Morrisons and how the evolution of making the film.
So basically, it was a fairly quick process. In November of 2010, I read an article in the Globe and Mail about Craig, this 88-year-old guy that was running problems with the building authorities. Flew out to New Brunswick probably the next day or day after. Met him, was charmed, and came out a couple weeks later and just, I think they thought we were crazy that we were optioning the story and and do that. And then, wrote it in the winter of 2011, and quickly we were sort of in prep by June. So it really was 6 or 7 months from the reading the article till we were in pre-production. So it was really beautifully short.
What was the writing process like?
Well, you're gonna hate me for saying it, but we moved to the south of France for 5 months, so I wrote the script in the south of France. So
I do hate you for saying
it was a terrible, terrible. I knew that we had a little bit of time. Like I knew I was gonna write the script, and so we took my wife and 3 kids, and we tried to learn some French and write a script. So it was quite nice.
As you do.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a really quick turnaround in making the film.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've been really lucky. I mean, with the one week in 2008, and Score in 2010, and this one 2012, that I've sort of been fortunate to sort of make films back to back to back. And I don't have an idea right now, so who knows when the next film is going to go. But it was just lucky. I mean, you can some stuff that I've written that's gone years without still hasn't been made, and other stuff that just seemed to people responded to it really well. So
Now, did you have Geneviève in mind and James in mind?
yeah, I mean those. I mean, you're looking at we certainly looked at the list, and they were the only 2 actors that we went out to. We didn't go with any. No, and it was, I think it's always kind of binary, that process. Like they're available and they want to do it, or they don't like the script and they're not available. And both of them really responded very quickly. So it was great.
And where was it shot?
It was shot mostly in northern Ontario, so just North Bay, and then south of North Bay and Golden Valley and Port Loring and stuff like that. And then we shot a couple of days out in New Brunswick, where like in St. Martin's, where Craig Morrison lives.
Tell me, I mean, we were just talking about this earlier. Not you and me, but other people were saying that you have a real talent for discovering tenderness and kind of a raw human emotion in your stories. And tell me about how, I mean, I just find that such a hard thing to find in films today. How do you develop that? What do you tap into to develop that aspect of story? I mean, like, I think comedy is hard. I think, telling a tender story is hard.
I'm just naturally sensitive.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. I mean, somebody asked me, how do you write old people? And I'm like, well, I don't, I just make them stupid. No, I don't consider, I sort of put myself at that age, and I don't sort of say, this is going to be on Golden Pond, like, oh, mother, are we going to do this? I just try to make it real, whether it's a 14-year-old trying to win the Boston Marathon or something like Craig Morrison. And I think if you try to manufacture sentimentality, it'll be cloying and not work. And I think that, there's scenes in the film where, like, she says, what if I forget everything? And he comes back and says, you'll still be my Irene, which is one of the tenderest moments in the film. And then I quickly undercut it with, but what about, and she sort of has this, she goes on a different tack about some person he might have loved before. And I think that the audience, and that's how we live our lives. Like we laugh at funerals because it's a coping mechanism. And I think that if you're trying to manufacture the tenderness, it won't work. But if you arrive at it, like in the lovemaking scene early, there's layers going on in the scene. And that's when I'm sort of interested as a writer to try to layer things and say, okay, he's upset because she might have burned the house down earlier, and he's also wrestling with his reaction to it, and he's also reacting to what he's losing his wife. And then she comes with sort of something that's unexpected that brings them back together. And I think because the setup is like this, it's going to be a sentimental, or not sentimental, it's going to be this kind of tenderness, because the string is being pulled tightly enough that a lot more is at stake than just what's going on there. So when they have the intimacy, there's way more at stake rather than just it in itself, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. And kind of expanding on that, there's a few really beautiful scenes in this film, and one is where Craig is talking about the table, and it's a narrative, which I thought was really an interesting choice. So tell me about kind of creating that story as from a visual perspective or a filmmaking perspective.
Yeah, that comes very later in the story, and it's a scene where, so I was, she has Alzheimer's, so you're trying to figure out a way as a storyteller to keep them connected. And as a couple, I always feel like as a couple grows together, they have an unspoken language. The years accumulate, the history accumulates, and a lot of times with Alzheimer's, it's the history that stays. And so to me, she was in the hospital at that point. That it was a way of having a conversation that she was present because it wasn't real, but it feels they would have had this conversation. And so a scene like that, where he's upset because of this, he's built this table, and it's about the years and the accumulated scars on this pine table. It comes basically, for me, that one comes from an autobiographical point of view. I have built our dining room table, and I've been annoyed at my children and for messing it up. But then, as a writer, you have the turn, and he says that's the thing about pine; it holds a lot of memories. That I don't know where those things come from, because that's the turn of the scene that you kind of wish every day you would have that as a writer, where it's just one of those kind of fortunate things that you don't really feel like, I don't know where it comes from.
Tell me about the social aspect. I thought that I was infuriated as I was watching the film, as well as
The social aspect. What social?
Like the fact that there's he has the inability to do what he wants on his own land, like claim his own.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was incredible, because he actually went to court 6 times, and I tried to balance it and to give he didn't make things easy for himself with the building. He pissed them off. Yeah. But it's an interesting sort of, you can then put the subtext of, how much money do you spend? Canadians are in debt, and not that this is a lesson, but the idea, like she says, we're not going to take a mortgage. She's 88 years old. They can probably take a mortgage and still be okay. Yeah. But this idea that there's an elegance of paying up front for what you want, and then the idea that he cut this wood, it was old growth black spruce, it was air dried, it's the best wood you can get. The building department says no, it's not. You need it stamped. He gets it stamped, and they still say no. So it's that aspect of the story was incredibly infuriating to even read, and I sort of had to tone it down a bit to make it believable. But I think there's something that resonates about the self-sufficiency and this over bureaucratization of our world, I think.
And have the real couple seen the film?
Yes. Well, Craig passed away 2 weeks ago. So yeah, but he saw it, and really it was really sweet. Like in his obituary, the whole family saw it, and I fictionalized some things, and I was quite worried that, I don't know, there's a lovemaking scene, like that they might think that was inappropriate, but they were incredibly supportive and generous in their reaction to the film. Even like I got a text from one of the daughters-in-law, good luck, like last night, and Gary, the lawyer, sent an email. So they're very, and when he died, his obituary was mostly it was just the family stuff, but they did mention that he was part of the film. So his reaction could not have been better, and I would have hated to have taken a guy's story like Craig's, and at the end of the day, he wasn't happy with it, and I would have felt like that sort of takes away some of the joy of the film for me.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
It's because I gush so much.
Yes, exactly. You make it very easy. I love your film.
There were a lot of times I regretted not making that table out of oak. As the years went by and the scars added up, the imperfections turned that table into something else. That's the thing about pine. Holds a lot of memories.